The sun was a merciless eye, hanging high and hot over the open stretch of desert. The wind did nothing but shift sand and sting skin, offering no relief. Caitlin May's breath came ragged as she trudged forward, one hand pressed to the small of her aching back, the other shielding her eyes. Her dress, once a fine gingham thing, was now torn, sun-bleached, and crusted with dried sweat. Her boots were splitting at the seams. Her belly, round and heavy, swayed with each slow step. Behind her, a boy no older than 8 dragged his feet, his lips cracked and bleeding. His name was Tommy, and he hadn't spoken in over an hour. She glanced back. "We're almost there," she lied. There was no there. The desert didn't offer destinations, only distances. Buzzards circled in the sky above them, their wings catching the light as they glided in slow, patient loops. Caitlin's throat was a dry rasp. Her canteen had held nothing since the previous night. Tommy stumbled. She turned, catching him just before his knees hit the sand. "I'm tired, Mama," he whispered. His voice was faint, like the wind brushing across bone. She sank to her knees beside him, blinking against the sting in her eyes, not from sand, but from the helplessness rising in her chest like bile. She brushed his hair from his forehead. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little more." A distant crack rang through the silence, sharp and unnatural. Caitlin froze. A gunshot. Far off, but close enough to remind her that the desert was not only deadly but watched. She scanned the horizon. Nothing but endless gold and rock. Her knees threatened to buckle as she stood. They couldn't stop here. Not with her brother-in-law hunting them like varmints. Sheriff Darnell had made it plain. He wanted her gone, her unborn child erased, and the land that rightfully belonged to her husband back in his greedy hands. The law hadn't protected Caitlin when her husband died under suspicious circumstances, and it sure wouldn't save her now. "Mama," Tommy's voice trembled. "There's someone." She followed his gaze. A figure approached slowly across the sand, mounted on a tall, dark horse. Dust swirled around him like spirits. He wore a broad-brimmed hat, his face obscured by shadow, a rifle slung across his back. Caitlin's heart stuttered. Instinctively, she pulled Tommy behind her and reached for the small pistol tucked in her waistband. It was empty. She'd fired the last round 2 days ago at a coyote. Still, she held it up, finger tight on the trigger as though it held meaning. The rider stopped a dozen paces away, dismounted in one smooth motion, and let the horse drink from a canteen. He looked them over with a calm that unnerved her more than if he'd raised a weapon. "You're on your last legs," he said. His voice was low, rough as gravel but not unkind. Caitlin didn't lower the pistol. "We don't want trouble." "Lady," he said, glancing at the pistol with a flick of amusement, "trouble's already found you. I'm just passin' through." She wavered. Her legs shook, and the edges of her vision blurred. Tommy clung to her skirt. The man took a step closer. "That boy don't look like he'll make it another mile. And you," his gaze dropped to her swollen belly, "you're about 2 days from meetin' that baby, if I know anything." Caitlin's grip faltered. The pistol dropped. She collapsed to her knees. He didn't rush forward. He moved like someone used to not being trusted, careful and slow. He knelt beside her, removed a clean rag from his saddlebag, and soaked it with water. She watched him through heavy lids as he dabbed it against her cracked lips. "Why?" she croaked. He shrugged. "Ain't the kind of man who leaves a woman and a kid for the buzzards." Tommy's small hand reached out, gripping the outlaw's vest. "Is she gonna be okay?" The man looked down at the boy, his hardened face softening just slightly. "She will be. But we gotta move." The world tilted. Caitlin tried to stand, but her limbs refused. The man scooped her up like she weighed nothing, his arms firm and steady. She smelled leather, sweat, and gun oil. "What's your name?" she whispered. "Bo," he said. "Bo Riker." The name stirred something faint in her memory. Whispers from saloon folk, stories told in hushed tones about a fast gun who didn't ride for badges or bounty. Caitlin's eyes fluttered shut. Don't hurt my boy. Bo adjusted her in the saddle and nodded to Tommy. You ride up front. Hold on tight. I ain't in the mood to lose either of you. The boy climbed up, trembling, but obeyed. Bo mounted behind them, steadying them with one arm. The horse snorted and started forward at a slow trot, the wind at their backs. As they rode into the golden dusk, the desert seemed to watch, silent and vast, hiding more than it revealed. The heat clung to everything, but in that saddle Caitlin felt, if only for a moment, something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. And behind them, far on the horizon, a second plume of dust began to rise. Bo saw it first. He didn't say a word. Just shifted the rifle on his back and nudged the horse faster. Caitlin, half-conscious, murmured through cracked lips, "Why'd you really stop?" Bo glanced at the boy in front of him, then at the woman fading in his arms. His jaw tightened. "Because I know what it feels like," he muttered, "to lose everything and have no one come lookin'." The wind kicked up. The buzzards vanished behind them. And still they rode. Caitlin woke to the crackle of a fire and the earthy scent of horses and scorched sagebrush. She lay on a bed of dry grass beneath a shallow rock overhang, shaded from the desert sun. Her lips were chapped, her limbs stiff, and her belly throbbed with dull pain. Yet she was alive. Tommy was curled beside her, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Across the fire sat Bo Riker. He was cleaning a rifle with methodical care, his fingers moving with quiet precision. His eyes, shaded beneath the brim of his hat, flicked up when she stirred. "You're awake." Caitlin tried to sit up and winced. "Where are we?" "Canyon south of Black Ridge. Hard place to find unless you're lookin'. Been hidin' here a long while." He set the rifle aside, reached for a canteen, and held it out. Slow sips. She took it with trembling hands. The water was warm but precious. It slid down her throat like a miracle. "Thank you," she said, voice hoarse. Bo gave a slight nod, as if the word unsettled him. "Your boy's tougher than he looks," he added. "Didn't whimper once on the ride." Caitlin brushed hair from Tommy's forehead. "He's had to be. We've been run out of more towns than I care to count." Bo leaned back against a rock, stretching out his long legs. "That happen a lot to widows and children?" "Depends on what your late husband left behind," she said. "Mine had land. Decent land. Water rights. His brother wears a badge now, calls himself sheriff. But Darnell's no lawman. He's a snake in boots." Bo's face remained still. "Figured it was something like that." She narrowed her eyes. "Why do you care?" "I don't," he said plainly. "But I don't leave folk to die. Not when I got the means to do otherwise." There was something in his voice, a note of bitterness worn smooth by time. "I've heard of you," Caitlin said. "Bo Riker. The outlaw who burned down Greystone Bank. Robbed the Cattleman's Express, left every rancher in 5 counties screamin' for blood." Bo didn't flinch. "People always remember the smoke. Never what lit the fire." Caitlin studied him. His face bore the signs of old wounds, thin scars across his temple and jaw, the weathered skin of someone who'd spent years riding under unforgiving skies. What did light it? He didn't answer at first. Just watched the fire. The silence stretched. "My family," he said finally. "Wife and daughter. Caught the fever while I was 3 days out lookin' for work. By the time I got back, they were gone. No one helped. Town buried 'em quick, like they were trash. I lit Greystone because that's where the doctor lived. He wouldn't come." Caitlin stared at him. The air shifted. "That was 10 years ago," he continued. "Been ridin' alone since." Tommy stirred beside her. She pulled the boy closer, the crackling fire casting long shadows on the canyon wall. "They're not gonna stop," she whispered. "Darnell's men. They'll come. They always do." Bo stood, dusted off his hat, and walked to the canyon's edge. He scanned the horizon. "They're already lookin'," he said. "Saw a rider yesterday. Tryin' to stay hidden but movin' fast." Caitlin felt the dread settle in her stomach like a stone. We can't run forever. Bo didn't turn around. No. But we ain't runnin' just yet. That night, Bo showed Tommy how to light a fire with flint and dry moss. Caitlin watched as the outlaw crouched beside the boy, his hands steady as he guided the small spark into flame. For the first time in weeks, Tommy smiled. Later, after the boy had fallen asleep, Caitlin leaned against a rock and murmured, "He likes you." Bo gave a soft grunt. "That boy's got more grit than half the men I've ridden with." "You talk like you're not a man anymore." "I talk like someone who's seen what men become when they think no one's watchin'." They sat in silence for a moment. "You think we'll make it?" she asked. Bo glanced toward the stars. "I think the desert don't care who lives or dies. But I ain't keen on lettin' him grow up without a mama." Something in her cracked then, just a hairline fracture in the shell she'd built around her fear. She didn't trust him, not yet, but she didn't feel alone anymore. And that scared her more than dying. The next morning, Caitlin's eyes snapped open to the sound of hoof. Bo was already on his feet, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the ridge above. "Get low," he said. Caitlin dragged Tommy behind a boulder. Bo crouched at the canyon mouth, rifle barrel resting on a ledge. A figure on horseback crested the ridge, a lone scout, not yet aware he was being watched. Caitlin whispered, "One of Darnell's?" Bo nodded. "Tracker. Got that lean, hungry look." The scout turned, scanning the canyon with a spyglass. Caitlin's heart pounded in her chest. "He'll come down," Bo muttered. "Then ride back with the news." "Can't let him do that." She gripped his arm. "Wait. What if he's just passing through?" Bo's gaze met hers. "You want to bet your son's life on that?" Caitlin let go. The scout descended slowly, heading straight for the firepit's ashes. When he dismounted and crouched to touch the ground, Bo didn't hesitate. One shot rang out, sharp and final. The man dropped. Caitlin clutched Tommy, who stared wide-eyed at the canyon wall. "He would have brought hell with him," Bo said, slinging the rifle over his back. "Still," she whispered, "killing always leaves a scar." Bo looked at her with something like weariness in his eyes. "So does dying." They buried the body in the sand and scattered the fire pit. By noon, they were packed and riding east. Caitlin didn't ask where they were headed. She suspected Bo didn't know. He only knew how to keep moving. They rode in silence until the horizon shimmered with heat and mirage. Tommy leaned against her back, drowsy in the saddle. Bo led the way, his eyes never still, always scanning for the next shadow, the next sound that didn't belong. By nightfall, they made camp in a hollow under the rock. Caitlin built the fire this time, her hands steady. Tommy caught and cleaned a jackrabbit. Bo showed her how to set snares for snake. They ate in silence, the warmth of the flames warding off the chill. Caitlin felt the baby shift inside her and winced. "How far along?" Bo asked. 8 months. Maybe more. "We need to get you somewhere with walls and clean water." "There's nowhere," she said. "Darnell's bought off every town between here and the border." Bo rubbed his chin. "Then we go where towns don't matter." Caitlin frowned. "What does that mean?" "Means we find a place no one else would want. The kind of place you can build something from the bones of the earth." She shook her head. "You talk like you're stayin'. Like you're part of this now." Bo leaned forward, the fire reflecting in his eyes. "That boy called me Mr. Bo, held on like I was the only damn thing keepin' him safe. You think I can ride away from that?" She searched his face for a lie and found none. The fire popped. The stars stretched endless overhead. Somewhere beyond the canyon, hoofbeats would come. The past would catch up. But for now, Caitlin laid back, cradled her son close, and whispered, "Thank you." Bo didn't answer. He sat in the dark with the rifle on his lap, watching the canyon mouth like a ghost waiting to be reborn. They reached the old mining shack by dusk, its splintered frame jutting from the hillside like the ribcage of a long-dead beast. Abandoned and half-swallowed by the desert, it offered no real comfort, just 4 leaning walls, a caved-in roof, and the scent of scorched timber. But to Caitlin, it looked like salvation. Bo dismounted first, helping her down with a hand that lingered for half a second longer than it needed to. She said nothing, only steadied herself and rubbed her lower back. The baby had shifted lower overnight. Her time was near. Too near. Won't hold long if they find us, Bo muttered, inspecting the entrance. But it's better than open sky. Tommy jumped down and ran toward the rusted water trough nearby, but it was dry as bone. He sighed, shoulders slumping. Caitlin tousled his hair. Bo paced a slow circle around the shack, scanning the distant ridges. We'll need to make this place look like it's been empty for years. No smoke, no light. Keep your voices low. Caitlin touched the rotting doorframe. There's no running anymore, is there? Bo looked at her. No. They'll catch up. Might be tomorrow. Might be tonight. A quiet beat passed between them. So we stand, she said. Bo nodded. They worked fast. Bo dug a pit to bury the remains of their fire, and laid out tripwire lines with empty tin cans strung between bent nails. Caitlin swept tracks with a bundle of sagebrush to mask their footprints, her hands shaking from exhaustion. She didn't complain. Inside the shack, Tommy cleared away broken boards to make room for blankets. His eyes kept drifting to the window, watching for riders. By nightfall, wind whispered through the gaps in the walls. Caitlin sat cross-legged on a blanket, her breath shallow and uneven. Bo had found a few stale biscuits in his pack. Barely food, but they shared them in silence. "Why re you doin' this?" Caitlin asked as the wind howled. "Really?" Bo sat with his back against the wall, rifle across his lap. "You ever see a fire burn down a house so bad even the nails melt?" She nodded faintly. "That's what loss does to a man," he said. "Strips him clean. Turns his bones to dust. But sometimes you find a reason to dig through the ashes." Her voice softened. "You think we're your reason?" He didn't answer, but his gaze lingered on her belly, then to Tommy, who had fallen asleep wrapped in a moth-eaten blanket with a stick clutched like a rifle. A sound broke the silence, faint but distinct. Hoofbeat. Distant, then gone. Bo was up instantly, moving like a shadow across the shack. He pressed his ear to the wall, then crouched near the window. They're close. Caitlin's heart thudded. He checked his rifle. "I count 3. Darnell. Don't know. But they ain't friendly." Caitlin's hands went to her stomach as a sharp jolt of pain arced through her. Bo looked at her. "You all right?" She winced. "Contractions. Closer now." Bo cursed under his breath and returned to the window. Timing couldn't be worse. Caitlin pulled the blanket tighter around herself, biting down a cry. "If I die out here." "You won't," Bo said. "Not while I'm breathin' that." Another hoofbeat. Closer this time. Bo stepped outside into the black. Caitlin lost sight of him almost immediately. She grabbed Tommy and whispered urgently into his ear. "Stay down. No matter what you hear. Don't move." The boy nodded, trembling but silent. Outside, the desert was a hollow drum. Then, voices. "Riker," someone called. "You in there, you snake?" Bo's voice came calm and cold. "Who's a skin?" A different voice, cruel and amused. "Name's Deputy Calboon. Sheriff Darnell wants that woman and her brat. Says you're harborin' him. That's a Hanjin offense." Bo stepped into view, rifle at his side. "That woman's carryin'. Kid's barely got skin on his bones. You really wanna paint blood on your badge for Darnell's greed?" Laughter. "Ain't nothin' personal, Riker. Just business." A pause. Then, boom. A rifle barked. Caitlin flinched. Dust fell from the beams overhead. Gunfire erupted outside. Short, sharp cracks. Caitlin covered Tommy's ears, heart pounding against her ribs. Minutes passed. Then, silence. She dared peek through the crooked window. One horse stood loose. A man lay still in the dirt, blood soaking into the sand. Another was crawling, trailing red behind him. Bo stood, gun smoking. Caitlin gasped as a fresh wave of pain buckled her knees. She gripped the doorframe, sweat dripping from her brow. Bo rushed inside. 2 down. 1 ran. They'll be back, she groaned. Bo. The baby, it's coming. His jaw tightened. Then we deliver it here. Tommy looked terrified, eyes wide and wet. Bo knelt before Caitlin, unrolling a bundle of old linen and a flask of whiskey. You ever done this before? She shook her head violently. No. My first was breech. The doctor came late. Then we do it together. Through the agony, through the blood and the grit, Caitlin clung to Bo's voice. He barked instructions, calmed Tommy, pressed water to her lips, whispered words she didn't remember but somehow needed. An hour passed. Then another. And finally, a cry. High, thin, and new. Bo held the baby in both hands, his eyes wide with something Caitlin had never seen in him before, wonder. It's a girl, he whispered. Caitlin laughed and wept all at once. Bo placed the baby in her arms and Tommy leaned close, his small fingers brushing his sister's cheek. She's so tiny, he breathed. Caitlin kissed her daughter's forehead. Her name's Rose. Bo stood, wiping his hands on his shirt, bloodied and shaking. Outside, the wind died down. A stillness fell, heavy and solemn. Caitlin looked up at him. You still plan on leavin' when this is done? He didn't answer. He just stared out into the darkness, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. Then he said, If I leave, you die. I stay, we all might. But if you stay, she said softly, we live long enough to see what's next. Bo looked down at Rose, then at Tommy, at Caitlin, at the shadows dancing on the cracked walls of the shack. He sat down beside her, leaned his rifle against the wall and whispered, Then I guess I'm stayin'. And in the distance, unseen by all, a lone rider galloped back toward Darnell, dust rising behind him like smoke from a fuse just lit. Bo woke before dawn. The desert was silent, the sky above the horizon a pale bruise of lavender and gold. He sat with his rifle across his lap, staring out at the ridge line. His back ached, his shoulders tight, but his eyes were sharp. The wind carried no sound, not yet. But he knew they were coming. Inside the shack, Caitlin slept with Rose in her arms. Tommy curled beside her, one hand resting protectively over his sister's tiny foot. The boy had not spoken much since the birth. But he watched everything. Bo could see it in his eyes, the way they scanned the door, lingered on every noise. The kind of vigilance children shouldn't have to learn. Bo rose and moved to the edge of the bluff. The tracks were there. 3 riders had passed in the night, circling wide. Darnell's men, maybe Darnell himself. They were staking him out. They'd wait for high sun, maybe longer, flush him when the light was at their backs. He walked back into the shack. Caitlin was awake, sitting upright against the wall. Her skin was pale but her eyes were clear. Determined. They're close, aren't they? She asked quietly. Yeah. Caitlin looked down at Rose. We won't survive a siege, Bo. I know. Tommy sat up. What are we gonna do? Bo looked at the boy, then at Caitlin. We're gonna move. Not far. There's a ravine west of here, narrow, shaded. If I can get you down there, they might miss you. Caitlin's brow creased. And you? Bo smiled faintly. I'll keep him busy. No, she said sharply. We stay together. You won't survive a gunfight. Not with a baby in your arms. Caitlin stood slowly, wincing. And you won't survive alone. Bo reached out, steadying her. You've got more to lose than I do. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You're wrong. He held her gaze a moment, then nodded. All right. We move together. But we need to be ghosts. By mid-morning, they were on foot. Bo carried Rose tucked inside his vest, close to his heart. Caitlin held Tommy's hand, every step deliberate. They moved west, weaving between boulders and dried-out creek beds. The heat was rising, making the air ripple like smoke. They reached the ravine by noon. Bo scouted ahead while Caitlin and the children rested beneath a mesquite. It wasn't much, just a crack in the earth, but it offered shade and one way in, one way out. He found a high perch above it, a craggy shelf where he could lie prone with a clear view of the open flatlands below. From there, he saw them. 5 riders. Dust trailing behind like a comet's tail. At their head, Sheriff Darnell, broad-shouldered, white hat, iron star pinned like a dagger to his chest. Beau's jaw clenched. He slid back down and returned to Caitlin. "They're here." Her breath caught. "What now?" Beau dropped to one knee, looked Tommy in the eyes. "You take your mama and sister down into the ravine. Stay low. Don't make a sound." Tommy nodded. "What about you?" Beau smiled. "I'm gonna have a conversation with an old friend." Caitlin grabbed his arm. "Don't do this alone." "I won't," he said. "I'll have your voices in my head. That's more than I had for 10 years. Then he kissed Rose's forehead, nodded once at Caitlin, and turned toward the rise. The riders stopped near the shack. Darnell dismounted, looked around with narrowed eyes. He saw the tracks leading away and smiled. "Found you, you bastard," he muttered. Beau stepped from the rock, rifle in hand. "Afraid so." The deputies drew iron, but Darnell raised a hand. "Hold." Beau kept his stance wide and calm. "Ain't here to talk long, Darnell. Just here to make it clear. You ain't gettin' her. You come any closer, and we all go down bleedin'." Darnell laughed. "You think you're the first man to draw on me over that land? Over that woman? Hell, her own kin wouldn't help her. She's not worth the bullet you'll die with in your gut." Beau's voice was ice. "Funny. That's exactly what I thought about myself once." They stared at each other across the sand. Wind kicked dust into the air. Darnell's hand twitched. Beau fired first. The bullet hit the deputy to Darnell's right. He crumpled. Another drew and fired, missed. Beau dove behind a boulder. Shots rang out, echoes snapping across the canyon like thunderclap. From the ravine, Caitlin heard the volley and covered Rose's ears. Tommy pressed close beside her. "Is he winning?" the boy whispered. Caitlin's heart thudded. "He's fighting. That's enough." Beau moved like smoke, firing, ducking, reloading. 2 more went down. But they flanked him. Darnell circled wide. A bullet grazed Beau's thigh. He gritted his teeth, dropped another man with a clean shot to the chest. Then Darnell was there, behind him, revolver raised. "I oughta thank you, Riker," the sheriff snarled. "This'll make me a hero again. Killin' a legend." Beau turned slowly, wounded but standing tall. "You ever wonder why folks remember legends?" Darnell sneered. "Because fools believe 'em." Beau nodded. "No. Because sometimes, they're true." Darnell raised his gun. Tommy's cry broke the air. From the ravine's edge, Caitlin stood, a rifle trembling in her arms. Her eyes were wide, tear-streaked, full of fire. "Get away from him," she said. Darnell turned, stunned. Beau didn't hesitate. 1 shot. Darnell dropped to his knees, then fell, still. Silence. Beau stumbled, caught himself on a rock. Caitlin ran to him, Rose still wrapped in her arms. He sank to one knee. "You're hit," she said, breathless. "Just a graze. I've had worse from barbed wire." Tommy appeared behind her. "Is he gone?" Beau looked toward Darnell's body. "Yeah. It's over." The sun dipped low. Shadows stretched long. Later, they buried the dead beneath cairns of stone. Beau didn't speak much. Just moved with quiet purpose. That night, by a new fire under a safer sky, Caitlin sat beside him. Rose slept soundly in her arms. Tommy leaned against Beau's side, eyes drooping. "You could leave now," Caitlin said. "No one would blame you." Beau looked into the flames. "I've ridden a long way to find nothin'. Dust, death, regret." He turned to her, eyes reflecting the firelight. "But here. I found somethin' worth stayin' for." Caitlin took his hand. "Then stay." He nodded. And as dawn broke over the jagged hills, painting the sky in gold and rose, Beau Riker, the outlaw, the drifter, the man who had nothing left, stayed.